Hi, termination, layoff, attrition, retrenchment, separation, and downsizing are the most important part in organizational behavior chapter. So today we discuss about rewards and punishment and layoff. So if you always do what you have always done, you will always get what you have always gotten. In culture change efforts, leaders need to direct that adage inward more often than they direct it. So, toward those who work within the organizations, people generally act exactly in response to what they are rewarded and punished for. So, change that, and you may have a change at changing your company culture. So, the much is written about organizational culture. I think we often over complexity it. Simplify put culture in any organizations is the output of what we reward and punish. In other words, people tend to do what we reward and avoid what we punish. And when I say reward, I don't necessarily mean with gift cards and promotions in organizations. And then we talk about punishment that is not limited to demotions or terminations. Reward can be as simple as a thank you or a nod of approval, and a punishment as simple as a frown. So we discern how to act, what to do, and what to say based on the multitude of these cues that exist all around us. So, all the time we determine these actions by the stories and myths that we tell ourselves about our organizations. So, remember that time the vice president yelled and the late of meeting. So, the once worked with HR organizations that wanted to change this culture from largely transactions to one of strategic business partnership. So that is a fair enough goal, and yet they went about this endeavor without thinking about why they become a transactional organizations in the first place. A curious investigations of how this come to be relevant, that they were transactional because those were the behaviors that they historically rewarded and valued. So, who was promoted in the organizations? People who could produce stuff quickly and accurately when told to do so. So, how might these HR organizations change its culture? So, to more strategic posture. So, simple, promote people who work and act strategically. It makes little sense to change the little of an HR generalistics to strategic business partner. If you are still rewarding tactical behavior, giving people a different name doesn't change how people behave. It makes little sense to think that training people to be a strategic business partner will change your culture if you still only reward people who are tactical. So this all seems pretty elementary, and once wonder why a whole culture change industry is even necessary. And yet it does seems to be necessary because organizations don't willingly or easily change their cultures. So the reason for this is that the people don't like to change. Well, of course, we say this is obvious, but the focus of getting people to change and of change efforts is almost always misdirected toward the people who to do work and not to the real resistors of change, the leaders. The leaders reach their positions because they are good at navigating the culture in which they work. In a culture that reward tactical behavior, tactical people got promoted. Tactical people tend to value tactical stuff, and so they promote other tactical people. Why would we expect people who value tactical stuff to promote strategic people? Why would we expect leaders who value in the organizations is predicted on their ability to navigate a tactical landscape to want to change that landscape to a strategic one where their abilities and skills were devalued? They usually won't. So, if a leader's position perceived well worth or value in the organization is predicted on the skills they develop in navigating the current culture, they will not be inclined to change that culture to one where they perceive themselves to be of less value. In other words, if I got my position because I am good at playing office politics, so then why would I want to get rid of office politics? This is a pernicious problems on the real reasons why so many change efforts fail. So I said earlier that it is interesting that so many organizations fail to purposefully look at what they reward and punish when engaged in cultural change efforts. So it is interesting, but as we have seen, not surprisingly, change efforts are almost always directed downward. Leaders think if we could always change how our people act, then we had have a better culture. But the real barriers to change is how the leaders themselves act. The real barriers is what they reward. So what they punish and what they value. The real barrier is the very real fear leaders feel in addressing behaviors that they themselves actively engage in a rare good at the thing that they think made them valuable. So if you want to change the culture of your organizations, the first step you should always take is to clarify, identify the culture attribute you are trying to change. Do your people act too tactically? Do leaders overfunction? Are people passive and always waiting for orders? Next, do a purposeful and always waiting for orders. So next, do purposeful inventory of what the organizational reward punishes and values that drives these behaviors, and then do some serious introspections into the role you and other leaders may play in creating it. Ask yourself, what do I value? What I do I reward? What do I punish? How does my perceived value to the organizations hinge on being good at what we currently reward? And most important, what do I have learned to or unlearn to begin changing what I value, reward or punish? So in other words, how can I reshape myself to be valuable in the different kind of culture? Most definitely do not ask, how can I change these people down there? After all, whatever you realize it or not, the leaders are the ones who created the culture in the first place. If you always do what you have always done, you will always get what you always gotten. So the saying goes, in culture change efforts, leaders need to direct what adhere towards themselves. More often they are direct it those work within the organizations. Now we discuss about, as I first said that, what is layoff. So a layoff is a termination of employment initiated by employer. It is often used as a last resort to reduce cost. When there is no other way to avoid layoff, a layoff may be voluntary, as when an employee agrees to leave the company in exchange for a severance package, or it may be involuntary, as when the company lays off employees without their consent. So what are the different types of layoff? Now we discuss about this. So there are different types of layoffs, but the most common are involuntary and voluntary. So involuntary layoffs are when employees are laid off because the company has to reduce its workforce. Voluntary layoffs are when employees choose to leave the companies because they have been offered a severance package. And other types of layoffs include downsizing, so right sizing and natural attritions. So downsizing is when the company reduces its workforce by firing employees. Right sizing is when the company reduces its workforce by not replacing employees who leave. So natural attrition is when employees retire or die and their positions are not filled. So how do you lay off an employee? There are a number of ways to lay off an employee, but the most common is to terminate the employee's employment contract. And this can be done in a number of ways, including but not limited to the following. So, firing the employees, terminating the employee's contract, downsizing the employee, lay off the employee, terminating the employee's assignment, releasing the employee. So, why do companies implement layoff? So there are a variety of reasons why a companies may choose to implement layoff. One reason may be to reduce the company's overall cost by reducing the number of employees. The company may be able to save money on things like salary and benefits cost. And another reason may be to improve the company's performance by removing employees who are not performing well or who are not a good fit for the company. The company may be able to improve its overall productivity, may be able to improve its over a third person's, may be to restructure the company by downsizing certain department, not eliminating certain positions. So the company may be able to restructure its operation in a way that makes it more efficient. Finally, a company may implement layoffs in order to improve its competitive positions by reducing its cost and becoming more efficient. The company may be able to compete more effectively in the marketplace. So now layoff and reductions. So planning and implementation, managing complex layoff, communication planning, checklist, resources to help employees. Layoff can be one of the most difficult tasks you face as a supervisor. Understanding how the process works will prepare you for any layoff that your unit must initiate. So adequate planning and communications will have a significant effect on the employees being laid off, the remaining staff, and on client who work with your employees. So planning and implementation. The term layoff has the following meaning. So for regular classified non-union and contract covered staffs, layoff is the eliminations of a positions, the reduction of a positions percentage FTE, or a reductions in the number of months the position works annually due to a lack of works, a lack of funds, and or because of a organizations. For regular professional staff, layoff is the elimination of a positions due to a lack of work, a lack of funds, and or because of a recognitions reducing a professional staff positions percentage. Time or months worked per year are not subject to the layoff process. So an increase in an employee's percentage can entitle the employees to layoff rights, because increasing the percentage time of an employee is an ACIU 925 bargaining unit. So the employees unit responsibility. So notify human resources of the need to administer one of the more layoff. So ensure the employee schedule for layoff and all other staff and clients receive appropriate and timely communication about the layoff. Take any post layoff actions that is necessary to either end appointment or to ensure that reduced positions are accurately reflected in workday. So HR consultant and responsibilities. Evaluate the reasons for layoff to ensure that they are consistent with employment program or bargaining contract requirement or requirements. Assist departments with planning and managing complex layoff. Determine in hire list and or Plumbing options for classified non-union and contract cover staff. Ensure that the layoff notice is properly prepared and signed and by the official who has the delegated authority to do so, typically the dean or vice president or equivalent officials or that individual's designee. So ensure that the signed layoff notice is properly delivered to the employee. Determine of for classified staff that the employee's layoff options selected is properly recorded and acted on. And probationary employees, classified staff employees do not have the layoff and re-employed rights that permanent classified staff do. If a probationary employee must be let go for reasons related to funding or departmental restructuring, Human Resources prepares a special notice that inform the employees that their position is being eliminated because the department can no longer sustain it. The employee may be eligible for employment compensations and for insurance continuations benefits. So that's for the video, my friends. If you like my videos, please subscribe my videos. Thanks a lot.